go ahead. Dan? Just a couple of minutes while they set up.
Okay, so if you see from here, I'm just showing the layout, some layouts of what I'm working on at the moment, right, which is a 550 page.
Adam. Hello, everyone. Welcome again to Detour Ahead. Today we're starting out with a great guest, local from London, but also from other parts, and well-traveled photographer, documentary photographer, Simon Wheatley, who I've had the pleasure of meeting quite recently, but we've become good friends in a very short time. My cousin is interning with him and has been involved in a few projects. And Simon's, I'm going to read you a little bit about Simon's profile while we look at a PDF of a book project that he's working on right now that can be shown in the background. Dan, can we bring up the, yeah. So Simon Wheatley emerged as one of the most authoritative chroniclers of London's youth culture with the publication of his book, Don't Call Me Urban, The Time of Grime, in 2010, analysing the social dimensions that gave birth to UK's most important musical genre since punk. The mixture of music, portraiture, reportage, and architectural photography shot to #1 in the pop cultural category of Amazon upon its release, and was immediately hailed as a classic of British documentary photography. Since then, Simon has continued his work around the grime scene, also as a filmmaker. And 2022 sees him preparing to release a more comprehensive book that will cover the evolution of the genre up to the present day. Amongst Simon's career highlights have been a spectacular spell with the Magnum Agency, producing groundbreaking work from the French suburbs after the riots of 2005, and being selected at the worldwide as a worldwide ambassador for the launch of Leica's legendary M-series camera in 2006. In 2018, he was invited to be the in-house photographer at London's Abbey Road studios. Over the past decade, Simon has divided his time between London and India, the land of his maternal ancestry, where his photography has developed a fresh vision and where he has been studying yogic philosophy and music. He has been conducting workshops across the world and is developing a course of photography that seeks to combine physical, mental, and spiritual development in order to maximize the potential of the participants. So please give a warm welcome to Simon. Thank you.
So I just thought I'd begin with some of this, which is a little bit what people expect of me, and it gave, I guess, an antidote to maybe the words that Adam had to read. So I won't hang around here for too long. Some of this is going to come later in Lost Dreams. This is just some layout ideas. You're going to see all this later, this stuff, but the ones I've just scroll through in a smaller volume of work that's coming out before this. But yeah, I've just been trying to make sense of it all, really, of how many years is it now? It's more than 2 decades of this this cultural expression that became so powerful in London and across the UK, of course, and you could say even into the world. That's what people know London for now is grime. So it's, yeah, this is the video shoot, Roll Deep's first video shoot. So yeah, I was just that target. That's Wheatley's grandmother in the background, Wheatley's cousin on the right. So I was just around, really, and living in Limehouse. And yeah, I'm not going to get too into this. There's Kano. There's a lot. There's Kano ghetto as he was in those days. We'll come back to. This has to wait. Actually, it's a long story. I was going to start with something to this concept of detour, which Adam mentioned. You know what? As you get older, then you realize that everything is a detour, really, in life. I think you never know. However wise you are, you never really know what's coming next. How do I get to full screen in this? So I thought I'd just start with some stuff from Kolkata, where I went around, I think, 2008, after all the hype that I'd been through, and Adam referenced some of that. And I wanted to explore, for a long time I wanted to explore my maternal ancestry, on my mother's side, which is, now it's Bangladesh, but when my grandfather migrated to Malaysia, it was all India, pre-partition, Bengal, East Bengal. So my family, they've all migrated to Kolkata. I went to find my ancestral relatives. I didn't get on with them because I descend from this very elite aristocracy, and I found the caste system difficult to deal with. But I just chose a few pictures from the Calcutta work here, which I haven't edited seriously yet. I've got a lot of work to get through. And after a couple of trips, I just found myself shooting at nighttime because I felt that it was a time of darkness in India. I feel the philosophical crisis there, where I've just taken my daughter away, actually. She's 10 now, and I wanted to get her out before she was a teenager, because the Indian teenagers, they don't realize their own cultural wealth. They're very seduced by, I would say, fake Westernism. For example, something like subculture. They don't understand that subcultures come from deep places in the Western psyche. Gothic, punk, even grime, you could say. And it's not just about kind of getting a tattoo and growing your hair long and, you know. So this is work that I just thought I'd start with this, and I have to go back and maybe work some more in it. I don't know. I stopped photographing in around 2017. It was a year after my mother passed away, and I wanted to find a deeper expression, really. And I think the age of social media too, I found this banality on the streets that I just didn't want to photograph anymore, because I just came across, I don't know, man, I prefer to be at home with my daughter, really. Maybe later, now she's a bit older, maybe later I'll go back into it, but I started to learn an Indian classical musical instrument called the sarod, and I found that gave me the inner space which photography once gave me in the darkroom when I first started. And so I think that's it really for those. But yeah, look, I mean, no one's really happy. You go to nightclubs and everybody's like supposedly having a good time, but I don't really feel an inner happiness amongst people when I'm there. Yeah, so that's what music's given me. And so then I thought after that, I'll just show you a film that I made when Oronika was born. Her name means color of sunlight. And this was a time when, you see, I got a bit, I kind of fell out of love with photography. And when Oronika was born, I was in a very small town in northeast India, just towards the Burma border. I would say it's near Burma, but it's probably about 400 kilometers away. But it was very interesting because you have this like Mongoloid population with the Indian people there as well. And but what I found is the way that I photographed there was very different to the work that I'd become known for, say, like in the French banlieue or with the Moroccans in Amsterdam, where I'd have to entrench myself and really like struggle. And in Hong Kong, where I'd been to do an artist residency for a couple of months, I started doing Tai Chi, and I got into Taoism, and I found that was the philosophy that I most connected with. And I photographed according to those principles. So although I was still drawn, as you'll see, to the dark sides of the red light districts and to the gambling dens and these drinking dens, which are supposedly illegal in Nagaland, where Dimapur, this small town, is. If there was ever any like resistance to me, then I'd always smile and walk away and just follow the light and go to wherever it was I was meant to be. So this, for me, is very important work, and maybe my most important project ever, perhaps, at least the one that touched me most. And I made the music for this too. So yeah, I'm thinking to make that a primary school graduation present, I think. Where am I now on this computer? If I want to go back to, I'll show the PDFs. Yeah, so came back to London in, I need to find those PDFs, the book PDFs. I came back to London and I'd kind of neglected my work here for about a decade. And I started to edit through my work. And the first book that I looked at was one which, there used to be a station, City Airport. It's closed now. It's on the other side, just by the Tate and Lyle factory used to go. And this was from 98 to 2010, when I came back from some traveling, and I'd got some travel photography award, but the picture editors would tell me that it was easy to shoot in Mexico and Indonesia, where I'd been. And so I was looking for a local challenge. How do I go full screen on this?
View, go to view.
Oh, I see, sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. And this is the colors of the train line. I've been very lucky because this has emerged really as a document of rail privatization, really. It's just an idea for the design. I found these, the designer had created this color scheme, so I just played around and I built this line on the opening double page. So, I mean, I'm not going to read this whole thing out, but I saw this train line. It was hidden under the tube map in a thin white line. Now it's part of the London Overground, but it just seemed like a secret, and I only knew South London really at that time, so I just photographed it, and it was, you know, I write about it here. I said the work often felt hopeless, and I struggled to believe in the project, and nonetheless wanted to see through, and that's really how it was, because I have this grimness to me, this determination to see something through when I've started it, and so I'd get the boxes. I shot it on Kodachrome because it was cheap. I used to get the film for £2 a roll, process paid. That included the processing. I'd send it off to the lab, and all the slides would come back. It was out of date from someone I knew. But yeah, so this is something that I've edited. And I did mention a bit about Blair. Yeah, I said that the route which Silverlink's distinctive blue, green, yellow trains followed seemed like something of a metaphor for New Labour's ambivalence with its path through social divides. And when I first walked onto the platform at Highbury and Islington Station, aware of the pioneering role this district of London had played in the city's gentrification, I was conscious of Tony Blair's symbolic association with the area and somehow of what he might come to represent. Because this work does correspond to Blairism, essentially. And I just arrived on the platform at Highbury and Islington. I saw this Spanish girl squatter sitting here, took a picture, wondered whether to go east or west. And then I went, the train came east, so I went to North Woolwich. I found this guy having a picnic. And his story was here really. He'd once owned an antiques business. A lucky break took him to Portobello Road, and then came the property boom, and he had to move, and he went back to live with his mother and became an alcoholic in Weston-super-Mare in Somerset. And his story reflected that process of gentrification that we've seen in London. And of course, Islington, where Blair lived before Downing Street, was, in my memory, one of the first three areas to be gentrified in London, I think, were Islington, Clapham, and Notting Hill. And now, of course, it's coming down here. And he was having a picnic. And of all the places he chose in London, on this line, Hampstead Heath, Richmond, he was having it here at the station. I think this was actually shot on Kodachrome 25, this one. Yeah, I started with slides, and I think that was very important as well for the honing of a technique in photography was to shoot color slides, because you really had to get it right. In negative, you had a flexibility, of course, latitude. You could be a stop out here and there, but slide, you had to be spot on. So you had to be very focused, really. I'd be walking around this line, waiting for things to happen, but I used to be a goalkeeper in football, and it's a bit like that, where you have to be ready for anything, even though things might be quiet for a while. Just always be aware of the light level. Yeah, there was times when I really wanted to pack this project in. The only reason I finished it really was because Kodachrome went extinct, so that meant it was the end of the project and I could just edit it. But that didn't happen until 10 years later. Yeah, that's around here as well. That's, yeah, very different now, custom house. And these have been drum scanned. You see this detail on the guy's face. Like, you have to have a really good scanner to bring that out. That was at Kew Gardens, believe it or not. That's Dalston Kingsland. Again, it's very different today. So this is due to come out as a book. Well, it was meant to come out last year, actually, but I had a disagreement with the publisher. So I'm considering self-publishing this now. I think it's very difficult to shoot these days, like I did. I don't know, I don't think I have the confidence anymore to do street photography. And people have become very resistant. From 98 to 2000, I used to keep some notes with me as I walked around, meet people. This was at City Airport, some guy from Kosovo. And then, because at the time I was working for travel magazines, and I was relying on my writing to sell my stories. And from around 2000, 2001, I decided just to stop writing and make my photography stronger and to try and tell my stories just with photographs. So all these diary excerpts, they came from that early period. You know, I like that the last one sums it all up for me. About a guy went shopping to get away from his wife and hadn't bought anything. And I feel those were the times that I photographed. And I've come to feel that however close I am to people, however many friends I've made in the inner city, in the grime world, this work is perhaps my most personal in London, because it deals with loneliness and alienation. And to me, photography was I think how I dealt with my loneliness. That's why I went into it when I was 22, 23. That age, 23, 24, around there, after graduation, when I found a camera and the dark room and some kind of purpose and meaning and solitude, and to enjoy solitude, to relish it. Photography gave me that purpose in my life. That was London City Airport, believe it or not. You would never have imagined. Yeah, I was considering this picture for the cover as well, with the split down here. That was a Islamic school in Brondesbury area. This one of my favorite pictures. They were funny, these guys. That was Stratford, 1998, when they were building the station. I don't know if you could take a picture like that these days. You'd get surrounded by people asking what you're doing, your DBS check. Was that, I think that was, yeah, that's Tate and Lyle, isn't it? The factory. That was City Airport. Or, yeah, it was, I think. Yeah, I love shooting Kodachrome. It's beautiful colors. It's also one of my favorite pictures. That was Stratford in 98. And so I got there, and as I write at the end, I arrived there in 2010 because I heard about the Kodachrome deadline. I had a few rolls in my fridge still. So I thought, let me just go and shoot these. And the pictures, the blurry pictures out of the train line, they were made at the end because it had already become difficult to photograph people. And I think I was somewhere else, really. I'd already moved to India, and I was a bit detached, I think, from London. So that was actually 2004. It says Candidate City here. that's the end. So yeah, we've got about 20 minutes. I'm going to show you Lost Dreams. Now, do you want to ask any questions? Just have a little break from seeing things.
Hold on, let me get the microphone.
Hi, my question is, in most of your photographs, you're really close to the subject, and like the photos are very candid. So before taking the pictures, do you ask the people who are in the photos, or after you take the picture, you ask them, or how is it?
Depends. Depends. Generally not. Generally, you ask with, or what I used to do, I don't know how I do it these days, but I'd ask with the gesture. You'd make it clear that that's what you wanted to do, but sometimes there were times when you just had to make the picture on the train, and yeah.
Has it ever happened that they found out you're taking the picture and they got really angry?
Oh yeah, of course. yeah, many times. I've been through a few things still. Yeah, but to me, you have to go close. You know, I use basically this is all shot on a Leica M6. 35 and 35 is the go-to. 50 or 35, and then I keep a 28 for if you need it. You know, 28 if you're inside a situation. Yeah, 28 opens it out a bit. You know, but 35, I don't have a long lens. I don't have a lens longer than 50.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have a question before we continue? Yeah.
Do you spend a bit of time cropping the images? Because the compositions are so good that it's amazing that you caught that, like that one there. It looks like a painting or something.
None of it's cropped, no.
Really?
Yeah. No,
amazing.
Just take it all in the camera. Yeah, I mean, one of the first questions I like to ask when I run a workshop is does perfection exist? And are you going to answer the question or answer a new one? Does it exist? Does perfection exist? Yeah, it's an interesting debate. I mean, from my point of view, it's a continual state of attainment. The minute you feel that you've achieved it, you've lost it. I think it's something you just have to aspire to in composition. That's the fun of photography, is to make. I like to have layers and it's a sport to get it right. And you learn from your mistakes. You know, photography is something that it takes time. These days in the Instagram age and digital age, you're meant to be getting it together within a month of getting a camera. But I could take pictures for 5 years before anyone had seen anything of mine, and just be in the darkroom. And it's your mistakes that make you, and gradually you find your way, you find what works for you. And for me, I suppose I had 3 influences in photography, and all 3 of them, they did have that, that perfection of composition, and that's the sport, I think. Beyond the social intrigue which underpins my work, the fun of it is like whether scoring a basket or a goal or something, is getting that perfect. Sure.
I find that your work isn't too perfect. Like, it's not like Henry Cartier-Bresson or something like that, where it seems too orchestrated. These seem like actual documents, whereas which I prefer. I like that there's little bits of crap on the floor and stuff. Personally.
Well, thanks. Yeah, that's real privatization for you. Really rubbish stations and grotty places.
Does anyone else have a question?
Was there one up over there?
No.
Would you?
Yeah, Maria.
Oh.
No, just so it's recorded.
Who were your influences?
Well, I would say, I mean, okay, you could say there's 5 because you could go to Salgado right at the beginning, because I did Latin American studies at university. And so when I saw his pictures from Serra Pelada, and I'd been at university in Brazil, and it was like, wow. And I was just like anyone else at that time, a bit of a wreck. You know, what am I going to do when I leave? Good luck, everyone. You know, what is it? And then oh yeah, I can do this. Wow, look at that. And my dad's old camera, and I was in. But then I saw William Klein's work in Prague, summer after graduation, and I write about it in this at the beginning. And that blew me away, because then it wasn't just about like political involvement as a photographer. It was really art, you know, beautiful. His New York work, it just so raw and energetic. That was the first. And then I think I saw Alex Webb's after that. That was massive for me as well, color and the composition, the layers. And then Eugene Richards. They're my 3, and then of course Philip Jones Griffiths was my mentor, and dear friend of mine, very close to me. And as a human being, Philip was the man. He was totally non-compromising and very principled, and really on the left wing. He was the left wing of Magnum, really, Philip. Yeah, he was the man. So those are my influences.
About the Grimes, like it feels like you followed this group of people or not. I have a feeling that you were like documenting the same people or not. They were like, did they were aware of you being part of the group? Were you part of the group? How it happened?
Here we go. Well, let's get into this then. Yeah, perfect. 100%. I mean, okay, Lost Dreams is a publication I'm putting out. It's more going to be like more like a fanzine, and it came about because DJ Target, I read about it here, he contacted me, I think, 2017, and he wanted to see some pictures for his book, Grime Kids. And so I never realized that I had all this material, because when I put Don't Call Me Urban out, there's maybe 15 pictures here in Don't Call Me Urban, and Don't Call Me Urban is really badly edited. It was ahead of its time. It was kind of my Magnum graduation project, you could say. I was put under a lot of pressure to get a book out. And so I felt I need to make a book. And that's how Don't Call Me Urban happened, I'd say. But I wasn't really ready to make a book. Now I am, about grime. So all this material, and Lost Dreams is just focused on the guys. This is about the underground. This is the youth club guys. These are the youngers who I met at the Roll Deep video shoot. And Roll Deep were very interesting because they were being hyped up at the time as the next big thing. They were the next So Solid crew. They were in video shoots, photo shoots. It wasn't interesting, but their youngers were still living the life of grime. So yes, to answer your question, I thought I'd just show you this work now. Very close. I'm good friends with people from this world still, especially here, Hack Baker, who's quite a well-known musician now. That's Hack. And this is going to be shown in April in Rich Mix. And I'm actually running a workshop in February and March, so anyone who lives in Tower Hamlets can apply for that still. It's another week. And that's going to be exhibited alongside the work from the workshop will be exhibited alongside this. So yeah, I'm looking to do something experimental with that workshop. Not sure what yet.
I'm next. Hi. So your photos, they're all obviously high energy and people are constantly moving, the landscape's changing. Do you just take one photo or do you take several? Which I know it's quite hard to get the exact same image, obviously, when it's constantly changing, but do you take one shot or do you take lots of quick?
I wish I could do it in one shot.
I was going to say. No?
Yeah, I wish I could do it. Digital, you shoot too much. Film, I might have shot a situation like, say, this youth club here, I probably shot a whole roll in here. Digital, you might shoot 500 frames. It's too much, I think. You become a bit immune from.
I was going to say, it must change given obviously the change of materials you use. Digital, you can take way more.
You take way more, but I'd say you feel less. That's the problem.
100%.
That's the problem. But digital, I mean, if we went back to the Grime PDF and you saw the end of it, where I tried to make sense of digital, because from 2010 I did shoot all digital, you can instead of choosing 3, you can choose 24 frames. Because 24 out of 500 are going to be good. And so you can make a double-page spread of, say, a radio set of everybody, like a big crowd. And it becomes almost like a film. So it works too. But yeah, no way do I shoot 1 frame. This was probably those guys at the back of the bus. Well, look at the contact sheet. That's on another roll before. But to get the one I marked at the bottom, which went to Don't Call Me Urban, yeah, I shot a few, as you can see. But the woman didn't flinch once. How many exposures of her? 8 or so? And then I guess they got off the bus, and maybe that was the end of the roll for me that day. I wouldn't waste film these days, though. It's just too expensive. I look at these old rolls of film, it's like half a roll, I just let it go. Because that was the culture then. It was like £2 a roll. Used to buy a box of 20, I think, £40. That's Hack's poem. Hack's a genius. He wrote that in about 10 minutes. Just finally got him to sit down and do something, and he just breezed off in 10 minutes. But I'll leave it on at the end anyway if anyone wants to see it later. I'm conscious of the time. That's Hack. Any other questions? Then I'd use 6x7 as well. I'd use a Mamiya 7 for all my grime portraits were shot on that. And when I first started shooting grime, I went in with 6x7 and a Hasselblad panoramic X-Pan at first. And then I remember the first day I hung out with those, I shot like, I don't know, 12 rolls, and it was just going to be too expensive. So I went in with my Leicas, and that was the way to go, definitely. So it was much more incisive.
Hi, sorry. Do you find that sometimes if you've shot something or you've done a project and you didn't really like it at the time, that it dates well? Like you might go back to it a few years later and you're more sympathetic towards it and actually start to like it. I always feel like photography is really powerful once it's always dated because you're capturing a moment, but when it's really got some age to it, do you find you sometimes go back to old projects, perhaps like the Silverlink one?
Absolutely. I'm doing it at the moment. Over the weekend, I was editing my first Lambeth Walk pictures. That's when my journey really began in 1998, and I was experimenting with a 6x6 medium format camera in black and white of this architecture, this like futuristic architecture and portraits of people, and that work's been sitting there, and I just neglected it. I didn't look at it, and it's quite emotional actually, and I've been in touch with people in the pictures who find me on Instagram and write to me and hear about their journeys. And yes, so very much. One thing I would say though is I'm always suspicious of photography that relies on the passage of time for its strength. Like, oh, isn't that great image? Look, just because it's not like that anymore. No, I think a photograph must still stand on its aesthetic merits. And we mustn't be too, well, I mean, you can do what you want, but I shouldn't be too swayed by that nostalgic gaze.
Getting a lot of questions, Simon.
You know, the broken glass effect. I was going to ask you.
Sorry, I can't hear you. You'll take your mask down a bit. Is that going to help?
Okay.
Thanks.
So you know the broken glass effect on one.
Oh, sorry about that. Is it a bit repetitive?
No, I just wanted to ask, like, if it's the actual lens or it's like a broken glass or something, like.
God, it was my lens. Yeah, it's through a bus shelter or something like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was just asking, because it was like, so what's the meaning behind it? Is there like a meaning or something or not?
No,
Or it's just.
you can overdo it. I think it's very kind of like war zone type. I'm a bit conscious of. I've got a lot of pictures shot through broken glass. As I say, I like to have layers to my compositions, and that gives you another layer. So I often go with it. But yeah, sorry if I'm overdoing it.
No, like it's okay. I was just asking. I don't mind. I like it actually. I like putting things inside my camera. I like putting things around my lens. So I understand how you kind of feel about it. And I was just wondering if there was perhaps a meaning, or you just liked it because why not, you know?
Yeah, I suppose a lot of places that I've photographed are very like fractured environments, so it corresponds narratively.
Exactly. I felt in that way as well, so I think I get it. I'm just asking. Thank you.
Yeah, I wish I had the I don't know, kind of artistic spirit to rub something on my lens, but well, if I find some kind of old like Russian thing or something, but not my like Leica ones, I don't think I'm going to do it on those.
So we got time for a couple more questions. If anyone else wants to ask
Like this one
Simon.
here, bus shelter.
I'm curious. I know that you're very sensitive to the environments that you're in, and I think it's really important maybe to speak about the ethical considerations about being in a community that you're not necessarily fully belong a part of, and I'm interested in how you approach that in general.
In which way?
Well, I mean, I think clearly you spend a lot of time with the people that you document, and you get to sort of understand more than other photographers that might just sort of parachute in and take the pictures that they want, and that are some way what they're looking for, sort of hunting it down as opposed to observing and seeing what's actually there. I'm curious of sort of your methodology and if it's changed over time. I know, speaking from personal experience, I know that mine has, you know, and I think I approach subjects in a much different way than I had when I was a student, for example.
Okay, let me go back then to like 98 when I started, and I made this first black and white squares at Lambeth Walk. Then I went to the Observer magazine in 99, and the picture editor said very nice things about them, but did they run it? No, because there's only 52 issues a year, and there's always some story from somewhere, so they may like it, but they might not run it. So what happened then? If I'd had that published, I may never have gone on to do everything that I've done in London. Possible. I might have just seen that as a story and then gone off to, I don't know, Mexico again or something. Who knows? So I think perhaps the biggest lesson I could give anyone is to never be afraid of failure, to embrace it. What might appear to be failure is also an opportunity to deepen what you're doing, I think, at least in my case. And then it was in, I think, 2002, when I was living in Amsterdam, that I got some funding to do a story about Moroccan youth, which was always, it was said to be an impossible story. I had to tell picture editors I was going to do this, and they used to laugh at me in Holland, because the schism between the Moroccan youth and the mainstream Dutch society was so great that they didn't know the difference between the Sun and the Guardian. The media was the fucking media, you know, as far as they were concerned. So photographers would get chased out of areas. But suddenly I got 10,000 euros from Amsterdam Funds for the Arts. I remember waking up the next day thinking, wow, okay, cool. Like suddenly I wasn't dependent on like getting a magazine commission or whatever it was, just the hustle. You know how it is, the hustle of of survival as a photographer, and I could take my time. I could just go to a coffee shop in East Amsterdam, not the tourist ones, but the ones when you walk in, everyone like looks at you. Go there, I could just sit down and I could just relax there. And youth clubs, I've got lucky. I met people in the youth club, and I've also got lucky with my entrance into my entrees into difficult communities. So that changed my way of being, I'd say, or it evolved into, that's where my long-term documentary experience, I think, stems from, is having that a little bit of security there, that I could just take my time. And of course, that endears you more to people who you're photographing. And yeah, did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's an interesting approach. Your answer is interesting because you're talking also about how the market makes us work as well. And often, as a freelance editorial photographer or documentarian, you get these assignments that are very, that are only covering you for a short amount of time because they give you certain, they have a certain budget for that, and so that doesn't allow you to develop a relationship or to really be empathetic with the communities that you're photographing. So the fact that you're able to afford these, either personal projects or projects that are financed in a different way, gives the resulting imagery a more sort of deeper meaning and significance.
And to follow on from that, if I could also advise in some way, then people who are in a hurry to be professional, I don't know. I mean, it depends. What's the hurry, really? I think if you had a part-time job and you're working, like there's a guy who's actually just messaged me I want to join my program. He's a graffiti artist a Moroccan graffiti artist from Mile End area, and who likes photography. And these are the kind of people I want to come on. I want to find, the raw talent on the streets with this workshop. He says he works at Crosstown Donuts, and he will go like 3 days a week, and he'll do the 12-hour shifts 3 days a week. He'll get it all out the way. So the rest of the time, he's free for his art. And I would say that's a better way to go if you want to really be a photographer. And to me, what is to be a photographer? Photographer, I would say it's a spiritual state, which can be undermined by commercial practice.
Yeah.
Or the industry, you could say. Where you're having to always respond to people, and to find your own way and just to do your thing is that's the artistic path.
Well, I want to give an opportunity for one last question from the public, if anyone has a question. No? How are we doing on time? Yeah, just 11:30. So please, thank you so much, Simon, for a really interesting and insightful talk.
Finish the story to the end of it. Done. So the French one has to wait. Maybe I can send the link. I'll send you the link so you can. So that's 5-6 minute film.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so this story basically came about. I was sent by Time magazine to 5 minutes, 22 seconds, to this small town. And I'd been there when I was a schoolboy. I went to the chateau in Blois. This was in the second week of the riots in France in 2005. The first week was about the big cities, and then it spread to the smaller towns. And so I went to cover it, to do what can you do in 2 days? I mean, everyone's hiding anyway, and this strange guy walking around taking pictures. No. But again, I got lucky, and I went back, and I was fascinated by the demographics, because you have France's fourth biggest housing estate. It's not in Lyon or Marseille or, of course, Paris, but it's in a town of 50,000 people, and 20,000 of the 50 are lumped on the edge of town. So it's like the fourth biggest estate being, I don't know, Dorking or Horsham or, I don't know, some Colchester or something, not in Newcastle, wherever. So I felt as an example of the institutionalized marginalization, because I felt racism was a far greater problem in France than it actually was here. I decided to go back, and I made about 8 trips. But yeah, this took a lot out of me, this experience. Yeah, the panoramics came just from after like a couple of trips there. It was so difficult. You walk around for hours and not find anything, and some people, you go there, they're not interested, to put it mildly. So I took my panoramic camera just as an experiment, really. Yeah. That's photography. It's an experiment, really. It's always, I think, it's just a series of experiments for my projects. Always trying new things and then making sense of it. And books, I feel, are always best as a retrospective analysis of what you've done. You don't set out to make a book, but a book happens when you look back and think, wow, okay, make sense of it somehow. That's what I'm trying to do at the moment. Thank you for coming, everyone. Thank you. It's good, yeah? Yeah.